cada uno de nosotros trajo una pala de enterrador, porque aquí en Mar del Plata está la tumba del Alca. Alca, Alca, al carajo.
¿Por qué no te callas?
No se ha visto un gran cambio. Creo que Obama, al menos hasta ahora, ha sido como esos pitchers que se anuncian estelares, ¿no? y llega Wild. Frenar la locura imperialista, que ahora se ha desatado como nunca antes jamás en mucho tiempo, y con un poderío terrible, amenazante. ¿Qué es eso? Una amenaza para el mundo. La pretensión del imperio yanqui de controlar el planeta, algo que ya es imposible, pero es una amenaza para los pueblos del mundo.
Hugo Chavez, president of Venezuela from his first inauguration in 1999 until his death in 2013, was notorious for his charisma, populist policy, and ability to build the Latin American anti-American movement in international relations. In analyzing the linguistic strategy that Chavez employed to make these last 2 points possible, there appear two personas that Chavez embodies, and the division is largely demarcated by the form in which Chavez speaks when delivering the relevant speech. The first of these personas is the teacher, taken on when speech is domestic and addressing the Venezuelan public, and the second persona is the politician, taken on when speeches are given in the international arena and are most likely addressed to other high-level politicians and diplomats. This paper will look at these two personas and their respective linguistic strategies, specifically along the scales of personal positioning and international scope. Duranty's chapter on speech acts opens with an exploration of Malinowski's ethnographic theory of language, which emphasizes the 2 points of the notion of context of situation and the view of language as a form of action. The notion of context of situation is an integral idea drawn into this paper, as which of Chavez's two personas is used depends specifically on this context. For the purposes of this paper, context of situation is most easily demarcated as the audience to which the speech is addressed and in what form it is given. As his teacher persona, Chavez turns his speeches into rallies of the Venezuelan people, in particular the poor of the country. Because these speeches are addressed to the Venezuelan public that keeps him in power as a populist leader, Chavez takes the approach that has been most common to his domestic political career, putting himself at the level of the people in order to best relate to and convince them of his ideas. An interesting thing to note is that, unlike will be seen with Chavez's politician, Chavez's teacher does not counterbalance his placing himself at the level of the people, likely as he does not feel any obligation to please the international community in the way he does the Venezuelan pueblo. The first example to be used for Chavez's teacher is Aló Presidente, episode 247, aired on February 19, 2006, when he talks about then Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice, venturing into the thematic area of international relations while still maintaining his teacher persona as a result of being in the context of situation of addressing the Venezuelan people through his national television broadcast. At the beginning of the broadcast, Chavez engages in a dialogue about the scientific advances of the Venezuelan government. The dialogue format, as well as the fact that Chavez is the one asking all the clarification questions, and not just assuming an air of knowledge and understanding, brings him to the level of the common people. He also refers to Condoleezza Rice with the typical belittling terms of endearment that would be very accessible to the Venezuelan public. The second example of Chavez as teacher is his March 2006 Ignoramus Burro speech on Venezuelan broadcast television. Chavez's constant repetition of "eres un ignorante" in reference to President Bush gets the idea across very firmly in an easily repeatable soundbite that the Venezuelan public can latch onto. When he briefly shifts into his self-reported bad English, Chavez further associates himself with the lesser-educated pueblo.
Una gran ignorancia es la que tú tienes. Eres un ignorante, Mr. Danger. Eres un ignorante. Eres un burro, Mr. Danger. Eres un burro, Mr. Danger. O para decírtelo más bien, para decírtelo en mi mal inglés, en mi bad English, you are a donkey, Mr. Danger. You are a donkey. Me refiero, ustedes saben, para decirlo con todas sus letras, a Mr. George W. Bush. You are a donkey, Mr. Bush.
In Chavez's politician speeches, he takes on an elevated self that essentially seeks to establish himself as an elite among other elites, heads of state, heads of government, and other major politicians, in order to maintain the respect of these individuals. In order to counterbalance this necessary elevation of self to an elite level that contradicts Chavez's characteristic populism, Chavez ensures that both the following measures are taken in his political speeches in the international arena. First, he draws significant focus to the elevation of the Venezuelan nation, and second, he ensures to still edge into passionate and arguably exaggerated rhetoric that is reminiscent of his speeches from the teacher persona. The first example of Chavez's politician is his speech at the United Nations General Assembly on September 15, 2005. Here, his reference to the details of the Millennium Development Goals creates a thematic elevation above the average level of knowledge on the topic, placing Chavez on the level of politicians engaged in international relations. However, he still makes reference to El Libertador Simón Bolívar about halfway through the speech, and also references the Bolivarian Revolution. Most notably, he ends his speech with the statement, "We will fight for Venezuela," while discussing the larger theme of a UN headquarters in the Southern Hemisphere. Perhaps the most notorious politician speech given by Chavez was his speech again to the United Nations General Assembly on September 20, 2006. Early on in the speech, one can find a clear degree of language elevation from the speeches, discussed in a previous section, addressed to the Venezuelan public. Phrases such as hegemonic pretension mark a clear difference from the level of language used in domestic speeches. Furthermore, Chavez makes several elevated popular culture or mythological references throughout the speech: Damocles, Alfred Hitchcock, Aristotle, that might not be accessible to the common Venezuelan public and clearly indicate an effort to be seen, even if temporarily, as part of an elite group. Still, though, Chavez maintains his rhetoric, characteristic of all of his speeches, in order to counterbalance this elitism.
I think that the first people who should read this book are our brothers and sisters in the United States, because their threat is in their own house. The devil is right at home. The devil himself is right in the house. And the devil came here yesterday. Yesterday, the devil came here. Right here. Right here. And it smells of sulfur still today. This table that I am now standing in front of. Yesterday, ladies and gentlemen, from this rostrum, the President of the United States, the gentleman to whom I refer as the devil, came here, talking as if he owned the world. Truly, as the owner of the world.
Now some general questions for the viewers about how I should move forward with my paper. I'm looking for more ethnographic sources on Chavez's speech, or on speech giving in general. Is there anything in particular I should focus on in my search? Are 2 speeches per category too much to tackle? How can I target the scope of my comparison and contrast? Are there any other questions or comments you might have? Thank you.